Hello and welcome. What we are discussing the previous year questions from National Income chapter, and we have brought up a series where I am discussing with you core concepts through PYQs, or you may say the opposite, core PYQs through core concepts. So because ultimately in prelims what they ask is concepts, in mains what they ask is the application of all those concepts to real life. We are on to the chapter National Income. We have discussed the questions from the year 2018, 22 and all those. We are on to the year 2015. Let's discuss the question. Sorry. The question is with respect to GDP. Let's see the question. With reference to Indian economy, consider the following statements. The rate of growth of real GDP has steadily increased in the last decade. This is one statement. The gross domestic product at market prices has steadily increased in the last decade. Look, point of reference, last decade. Question 2015. These type of trend based questions are a very big favorite of UPSC. They may ask a trend of recapitalization of banks, that every year the recapitalization of banks has increased. They may ask about NPAs. They may ask about agricultural production, kharif production. Trend based questions, very big hit. Source for them, economic survey. So from economic survey, we don't have to read what's the growth rate for every year. We don't have to memorize the growth rate for every year. What we have to memorize is, what we have to say is the trend. Whether it has been consistently going up, whether it has been consistently going down, or whether the increase or decrease is up and down. In this thing, a statement, a word which is very important is steadily. When I say steadily going up means going up like this. Alright. When I say GDP growth rate has been steadily going up, it means in the last year, from 2006 to 2015, in these 10 years, it says that the growth rate has been consistently going up. Growth rate of 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. For all these years, the growth rate has consistently gone up. That is, growth rate of 15 was more than 14, 14 more than 13, 13 more than 12. And that too, when the year 2008 was a year of global financial crisis, where India witnessed a slowdown. So, very difficult that the GDP would have grown. If it is slowed down, it means the growth rate of this year is less than the growth rate of previous year. And when we read the topic of business cycle, we know this thing. We know one thing, that if I talk about GDP growth rate and time, it would never happen that the GDP growth rate is consistently going up. It would never happen. It would also never happen that the GDP growth rate is consistently going down. It would also not happen. What would surely happen is that the GDP growth rate would go up, would go down, would go up, would go down, would go down, would go up. The GDP growth rate would go up, go down, go up, go down. There would always be ups and downs in a business cycle. So very difficult that the GDP growth rate would have steadily gone up. So this statement, that the rate of growth of real GDP has steadily increased in the last decade, this statement is wrong, because there would always be blips, there would be always be agricultural droughts, or there would be foreign interferences, or there would be issues at the global level, issues at the domestic level. which would some way cause the growth rate to go down. So first statement is wrong. Second statement, the GDP at market price. When I say GDP at market price, it means I am talking about nominal GDP. GDP at current prices. GDP at market price has steadily increased in the last decade. GDP MP it's talking about. That GDP MP has steadily increased in the last 10 years. Look, we have witnessed only 5 instances. The question was 2015. By 2015, we did not have COVID. So by 2015, we had only 4 instances when the GDP of a year was less than the GDP of previous year. That's a country faced recession. After COVID, it was the 5th instance when the GDP came down. I'm not talking about GDP growth rate coming down. What I'm saying is, it was the year 5th instance when the GDP had come down. On an average, what we have seen is that the prices every year are increasing. India has regularly seen inflation. India has regularly seen the indirect taxes going up. India has regularly seen production going up. The rate at which the production is going up, that hasn't happened. But the production of every year. Look, what is GDP? GDP is production multiplied by prices. That is what is GDP. So India has hardly seen deflation in the last 20 years. It has been consistent inflation. At the same time, we haven't even seen GDP going down. We haven't seen recession. From 2000 to 2015, we haven't seen a recession, right? So this statement that the GDP at market price in rupees has steadily increased in the last decade. Yes, the GDP has steadily gone up. Every year, the GDP, if we see a graph of only GDP and time, yes, the GDP has steadily increased over a period of time. But if I make a graph between GDP growth rate and time, this cannot happen that the GDP growth rate would continuously go up. If what we have seen is growth rate going up, going down, going up, going down, we have seen this trend. So if we go by this trend, this statement comes out to be wrong. If we go by this trend that GDP has steadily increased, this statement comes out to be correct. What we have to find out? We have to find out the correct statement. Answer is only one. I hope you have understood what is the difference between GDP growth rate steadily increasing and GDP growing steadily increasing. Alright, GDP steadily increasing means the rupees term going steadily up. When I say GDP growth rate going up, it means the percentage terms going up. That's hardly going to happen. That doesn't happen with any of the country in the world. I hope you understood the question. We'll continue the discussion with further questions. That's it for today. Thank you.